Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Tanner's Favorite Things. I'm Tanner Knight, and today we have a guitar to talk about. So we are back in guitar land, and I know that we spend a lot of time talking about Fender and Gibson products, PRS, some more mid to high-end instruments. That's kind of where my heart lies, but I also really love when a value instrument can punch above its weight and provide a really good playing experience. So today we're going to be talking about a guitar that fits that bill to a T. This is the Squier Bullet Stratocaster, and it looks like this. So Squier is the budget brand of Fender. They make all of their instruments in China, Indonesia. I believe there's some Korean Squiers. There's even some Japan Squiers from the late 80s. So they've been made all over the East for as long as the Squier name has been in use. So a little bit of quick history. So Fender was one of the early electric guitar manufacturers along with Gibson and Gretsch and Epiphone. And Fender is really known for simplicity, yet function, and really great sound. And that's kind of what they've hung their hat on for all of these decades. I would say Gibson is more of the high-end, high-born type of guitar that is aiming towards a more, I don't want to say sophisticated player, but that's kind of what they envision as far as Gibson versus Fender. But when you get into the late 70s and even the mid 70s, you start to see overseas copies of Fenders and Gibsons. And this is considered the lawsuit era because Gibson, Fender, and a lot of the other companies that were being kind of knocked off, so to speak, in Asia were levying lawsuits in those countries. So there were a lot of lawsuits against companies like Ibanez and other Japanese makers that were making Les Paul style guitars, Stratocaster style guitars. So the two big makers, Fender and Gibson, well, they decided if you can't beat them, join them. And Gibson took their Epiphone name, which they purchased in the 50s, and kind of let it die in the 70s for the most part. They revived it in the 80s, and Fender, conversely, had the name Squier, and they assumed that name as the budget brand for all of their made in China, made in Indonesia, all of these other places that Fender would be building. Not necessarily Fender Mexico yet. Those always retain Fender licensing, and that also starts in the late 80s, I believe, the Fender Mexico plant. But we're not going to talk about that. We're talking about Squier and this particular guitar. So this one is an Indonesian-made Fender Squier guitar, and it says designed and backed by Fender, crafted in Indonesia, and it has a serial number ICS, blah, 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 a bunch of numbers. So then what is this guitar? Well, it's very Stratocaster-like. Let me grab a Strat. This is my Fender Strat Deluxe, and as far as you can tell, the profile looks pretty identical. We have what appears to be slightly larger comfort cut. Maybe it's the same, but a comfort cut, and everything else looks pretty much the same until you get the side profile. So these are much thinner guitars. The US Strats, this is an ash Strat, so it's actually kind of heavy, but it's not as thick as the US made Strats, or I believe the Mexican made Strats as well. And I'm not exactly sure if that's a Squier variant or if it's the Bullet variant. I mentioned that word Bullet early on. The model, the Fender Bullet, was in production, I believe it's the late 70s, early 80s, but it's kind of a stripped down rocker guitar, and the name kind of stuck on a few different models, and the Bullet, I believe, is a little more stripped down, and maybe that's why this body is so thin. But it makes for a very light and very fun feeling guitar. Just feels light in the hands, but it feels loud when you strum it. So that's really nice from a tone wood perspective. I believe it's poplar, but it could also be basswood. Kind of hard to find spec sheets for these. They're a little over 5 years old now, 6 years. This is like a 17 or 18, probably a 17 based on the serial number. It does say 1707, blah, blah, blah. So I think this is a 2017 guitar. So we talked about the body. It's potentially basswood, potentially poplar, but we definitely have a maple neck. This is very obviously maple with the, I don't know if it's walnut, but some sort of skunk stripe here that is made to look like walnut, some dark wood there. The headstock also reflects the maple coloration. There's no veneer or anything on here, just straight up maple. The highlight though of this guitar is by far this fretboard. This is a rosewood fretboard and it is sexy. It's got streaks and it's got character. It kind of dances in the light. This thing is way nicer than you would expect to find on this guitar. So I don't know if all of them are, well, actually I do know that not all of them are like this. I did a little bit of research trying to find some examples online, and this is by far the nicest fretboard I've seen on any Squier, let alone the Squier Bullet. So that's pretty freaking cool. We also have an HSS configuration, humbucker single coil. So that's not terribly far from where most people live in the Strat lands, but usually the historical configuration for a Strat is 3 single coils with 1 slanted here. But the humbucker in the bridge is a really popular, especially in the 80s and 90s, a really popular modification that a lot of people did to the Stratocaster, and eventually Strat gets on board with speccing humbuckers in the bridge on some of them. There's even a very few dual humbucker Stratocasters out there, probably more in the Squier realm than the actual Fender realm, but that's one of those weird variants that you don't see too often. But HSS, you kind of see a bit more frequently. So this color, this is a limited color, and I don't know how limited they can be with Squier, but I believe that they limited it probably just to that 1 or 2 years, 17, 18. This is called Black Sparkle, and it's got a little bit of sparkle to it. It's really nice, and it feels good. It's definitely a poly finish. Can't expect anything else, but it feels good. And our pickguard is also complimentary. It's like a gold, I don't know, sparkle, I guess is what you'd call it, but it is gold-ish, and it complements the black sparkle really well. Very sexy guitar. This thing, it just looks cool, it feels cool. Best of all, it plays really well, and we'll get to a playing sample here in a second, but I just want to talk about a few other things. Our nut, it is some sort of plastic nut. I couldn't find the exact material, but no way in hell are they putting a bone nut on what I assume is a $200 guitar. The tuners, this is probably the weak point in this guitar. I hate these friggin' dome tuners. They're so, yeah, they just don't do it for me. And this one stays in tune okay so far, but it does drift slightly on these higher strings. So I think I got a couple of different things in mind for this. I'm thinking about hot rodding this thing and just swapping it all with Fender USA custom shop pickups and parts all around. I don't know, it's probably not worth doing because that's $600 or $700 of parts into a $200 guitar, but I think that this guitar really has a lot more character in it. And these pickups, they do very well, but they are definitely import style pickups. So we're not going to do a teardown in this video, so don't get your hopes up, but I am going to tear this guitar apart, see what's under the pickguard, see what's under the pickups, and I don't know, maybe we'll try to swap these tuners out with something a little nicer. But I do want to take this thing apart and see exactly what's going on. It definitely needs a deep clean. Being a 7 or 8, 9 year old guitar, it definitely has some grime here and there, and it could use some love. Other than that, the setup on it is really good from a height perspective, but the intonation is suspect. So I'm going to do my best to keep this thing in tune, but just know that the intonation has not really been addressed. I'm going to do that with a teardown, as well as a few other things to see if I can make this thing play just a little better. What is our tremolo system? It is a standard Strat 6 spring. I guess there's only 3 springs on this one. You can kind of see through the back. Only has 3 springs, but it is a standard Stratocaster style tremolo. I do believe it's a 5 screw, so that's kind of cool. We do have 5 screws here. It didn't come with the arm, so I'll have to try to track down a Squier arm and see if I can make it work. But with 3 springs, it should be nice and loose, kind of right in the middle. And yeah, that's what you get. You get a black jack plate here, standard Stratocaster style, but with the black coloration. Also the bridge and the saddles are black, which is not very common on most Strats, but it does match the tuners as well. So we do have that blacker than black theme. Maybe I'll have to find some black hardware and swap it out. But that's what we're dealing with. Volume, tone. Tone, volume is master for all 3 pickups, and the tone, I think, is out of the circuit. That's one thing that I do want to take a look at when I open this thing up, because when I do anything to these tone knobs, they don't seem to affect the tone. And I'll show you here in a second, but know that that's one of the things that I look at investigating here shortly. Besides that, there are no nicks or dings or gouges or just careless playing. It's just a really new old stock looking guitar, brand new looking almost. Well, I guess there's one ding right here I just noticed that kind of, let's see if I can pick that up. Well, there's a tiny ding there. Otherwise, it looks very, very, very clean. There's actually plastic on the back plate here for the trem system, so that's never been taken off. And yeah, great guitar. So let's go ahead and hear what this thing sounds like. Today I'm going to be playing through the Marshall Plexi 1987X through this Marshall 4x12. This is the MF280 cabinet, which is solid birch with V30s that are Marshall branded and a little hotter than regular V30s. So that's what we got here, a Marshall stack or half stack and the Squier guitar. Something tells me we can make it work. Okay, I'm in channel 2 on this Marshall 1987X Plexi amp, and it sounds great. We have one single microphone today. We're just going to keep it simple with an SM58 right on this bottom right-hand speaker. So sounds like this. So this is our bridge humbucker. Sounds pretty dark, pretty rowdy, and this amp is kind of on the edge of breakup just right as it is. It's kind of the nature of this amp, but you can clean it up if you wind the tone down or the volume up. And then get a little more rhythmic there. So that's the humbucker. Let's hear a little bit higher on the neck and hear what this humbucker sounds like on the lower strings. So really nice sounds on the humbucker. Let's just go through these other settings really quick. We do have a 5-way switch, so we're in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's go to 2. This is the bridge humbucker mixed with the middle single coil. And instantly you get that more stratty sound, that single coil introduced. And it's kind of nice mixed with the humbucker because it gives you the best of both worlds. It's still pretty dark, not too chimey, but it does have that Strat feel. Nice playing and sounding guitar. Let's go to the middle pickup. This is just the middle single coil. strattier still. Still pretty dark. This is one of my favorite positions on a Strat. This is position 4, which is a mix between the two single coils in this case. This amp is a little on the edge of breakup, but you still get that really stratty 4th position sound. And finally, our neck pickup sounds very non-surprisingly like a Strat neck. That E sounds really stratty. So there's your neck pickup. It does have Strat sounds in it. I think I'd have to dime it a bit more to get the Hendrix tones out of it, but you can definitely do it. It's in there, but I love the humbucker in the bridge, so let's go ahead and stick with the humbucker from now on, and we'll just leave it at that. If you want any more stratty tones out of here, let me know and I'll do a separate video. But that's what we've got. Let's hear this thing with a little bit of dirt. So if you do keep an eye on what I've got going on in this channel, then you may have caught my video on the Nauticlon. That's a pedal by JHS, and if you haven't checked it out, it'll be linked in the description of this video, but I suggest you check it out. We're going to be using that pedal as my primary overdrive, but we have a few more to mix in, but I want to hear the Nauticlon first with the Squier Bullet Strat through the Marshall. So, sounds great. That tone's a lot of fun. It's really boisterous, it's full, it's bassy, but it's not overly bassy, and it has plenty of treble to cut through, but it's not too trebly. Let's go ahead and take the Nauticlon out, hear what these tone dials do. I mentioned that we wanted to hear what they sound like or don't sound like. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, no more pedals. Here's the tone knob. They're all the way open. I don't hear any difference whatsoever. So I think that those knobs are out of the circuit somehow. So we're gonna have to do a little investigation and potentially solder some wires in. But either way, this thing rips right out of the box. I don't think it's stuck in the vol or the tone all the way close, like at 0, which would make it a lot more muffly. So I do think that it's just out of the circuit. Really nice tones. Luckily, we don't need the tone knob, but again, we'll get there. So let's hear another drive pedal. Let's go to the DS1. This is the Boss Distortion DS1 pedal. Really classic, and then we'll check out the Metal Zone. That's with the distortion at around 65% on that DS1 pedal. Not all the way. It sounds like it's all the way, but I think that's just how it's interacting with this amp on the edge of breakup, like I said before. So that's the DS1 with this Squier humbucker. Let's hear the frickin' Metal Zone. She does metal just fine. I will never make the claim that I am the most metal guy there is. There are definitely more dudes who are more metal than I, but I love hitting that metal zone and just having that on tap. That sound in the back of your ear, in the back of your head, coming at you, just feeling it. It's awesome. If you haven't noticed, I do have very bright green ear protection in, so hopefully you notice. And that's because this thing is loud as hell, and I never play any of my amps at any kind of volume without ear protection, and I recommend that you save your ears some trauma by doing the same. All right, just for kicks, let's hear the neck with the Metal Zone, see if it's worth using or if it's just fool's errand. I would say that it wants to live in the humbucker for the metally stuff, but the great news is that if you do want to do any Stratty stuff, the John Mayer stuff, some Hendrix stuff, then you have two single coils that you can access at any time and even blend them in with that humbucker. I think that this combination, position number 2, is a really, really good. But the humbucker on its own does reign supreme, and I'll probably leave it in that position for, I don't know, however long I own this guitar. This is a really fun guitar, and I just can't get over that it's one of the cheaper guitars that Squier makes. It's one of the least expensive guitars in the Squier lineup at around 200 bucks. And I don't know if they make it today. I'll have to do a little bit of looking to see what's in their catalog, but if they don't, then this is a really great sleeper guitar that I think you should look at. And there are a few options on Reverb right now of this exact guitar, or eBay, or wherever you purchase your instruments. So if you're really looking for a budget guitar, a Squier or an Epiphone, but you're not quite sure which direction to go, I would say this checks a lot of freaking boxes. The humbucker, the HSS setup in general, the quality of the workmanship and the components in general, I really, really like it and think that this is a winner. Some things that could be improved. These strap buttons are a little loose. I wouldn't trust them without doing a little attention on those. So other than that, I don't have any complaints. We'll take it apart and see. Well, I guess I do have the tone situation that I'd complain about, but I do want to take it apart, like I said, and then we'll hopefully get to the bottom of that. So let me know if you have any questions, or if you have this guitar in your arsenal and where it sits in your hierarchy, and if you love it or hate it, you name it. If you would like to purchase this guitar, it might be for sale. So look in the description and maybe a Reverb link will be there. Maybe not, I don't know, maybe I'll keep it. But that's what's going on here. Squier Fender Bullet Stratocaster, and really nice, fun guitar to play. And I have a hard time putting it down. So I'm sure I'm gonna play it a lot after I stop the record button here. But if you do have any But if you have any specific requests around this guitar, let me know while I've got it, and I will get it out there for you. Stay tuned for the complete teardown. We'll have that coming for you sometime in the next week or so. Otherwise, like and subscribe if you like this content. That always helps. I appreciate you all watching on the other end. Let me know what you think, and I will see you on the next one.